ladies, my name is Laura and I'm excited to share with you one of our family's favorite recipes for the holidays, for special occasions. Anytime we have soup, it's just a bread that we love. This bread is called challah bread, and it's a Jewish braided bread, and it's just beautiful on the table. So I'm excited to share with you how to make it. And if you hear little baby noises in the background, that's my little one. So part of cooking, we have our kids around with us, and that's just fine. Sometimes it's fun to have them join in the fun during the holidays making things. All right, so first I'm going to just show you all the things that we need. We really don't need too much. Our first step, we're going to mix active dry yeast with hot water and a little pinch of sugar. We need flour, oil, 3 eggs, some salt, and our sugar. Also, at this time when you start to make your bread, you can go ahead and just take out a stick of butter and let that soften, because yummy cinnamon honey butter is delicious on this bread. So you'll want some cinnamon, honey, and softened butter, but that's for at the very end. All right, so let's go ahead with our first step, and we're gonna mix together our hot water and yeast. I have found at the higher altitude that using a little less yeast is really important when making bread. So I'm also going to share with you guys a couple websites that give some great tips for baking different kinds of cakes, breads, cookies at the higher altitude, because this is my first time living at higher altitude. All right, so when I do the water, I usually let it get hot, and when it's pretty hot on my wrist, that's the temperature I want it at. You don't want it boiling, but you also don't want it too cool. So a lot of times recipes will say warm water. When I used to work at a cafe, I think they had said the temperature was 115 degrees that you wanted it at, and she always told us just when it's pretty hot on your wrist, use that as your temperature. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this open so I'm ready to add that in. And we're gonna do 1 cup of hot water. Okay, that's pretty hot where I don't want my wrist in there anymore. All right, and then we want 2 teaspoons of yeast. So I always put in my first teaspoonful, and then I just use a little bit less than a full 2nd teaspoon since we're at this higher altitude, and I pour that in. And then we'll use a little pinch of sugar here. And we'll stir it up. So that's always your first step when you're making a bread with yeast. You want to just go ahead and get that mixture going and let it sit and foam while you mix your dry ingredients. Now I'm going to make this bread by hand because I love making this bread by hand. It's so fun, but you can make it in a KitchenAid mixer if you want. But I just think kneading dough is a lot of fun. All right, so next step is our flour, and we are going to use 4 to 4.5 cups of flour. I always start with 4, and then when I'm kneading the dough, I'll add in more till I get to the consistency. So we just take our cup measure, and all-purpose flour is what you want, and just kind of, you can shake it or use a knife till you have 1 cup flat, and we're going to do 4 cups there. I have found on this recipe that I just follow the flour as it says with the higher altitude. Okay, that was 4. Gotta remember to count. Sometimes I lose count and I have to pour it back in and recount. Because with baking, you do want it exact. You don't want to just play around. Okay, so we've got our flour in there, and now we're going to do a 1/4 cup of sugar. So, grab my sugar. I can't find my 4th cup measure at the moment, so we're going to do 2 1/8 cups. All right, there we go. And next, 2 teaspoons of salt. And The salt, I feel like I just haven't really been measuring it that much. I know I just told you guys to do exact measurements, so you can do that. Or, you know, you can just, over time, I've just seen what a teaspoon looks like, so I kind of just grind 1 teaspoon in, then grind my 2nd teaspoon in. But you can always use salt that's already ground up and do that. All right, so we got our bread, sugar, and salt. And then I just kind of whisk it together to get those mixed. All right, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna form a little sludge or slurry in here with our egg and oil. So you wanna, with your hand, just make a nice little well inside the middle of your flour. In here. And we are going to do 2 full eggs in there and 1 egg yolk. All right, so if you don't feel comfortable cracking an egg just straight into your dry ingredients, then you can use a bowl on the side, crack it in there first. If you get any shells in there, just take them out and then pour it in. So we have 2 full eggs in here, and then we're gonna do 1 egg yolk. So to separate the egg yolk from the egg white, I have found from watching other cooking shows, this is the easiest way to do it. Okay, so you're just gonna crack your egg, let it stay in one side, and just put it in your fingers, and let it go, the yolk go a couple times. That white just separates so nicely, your fingers are gentle to not break the yolk, and then just pour the yolk right in your dry ingredients there, and then wash your hands. There's also fun tools you can use, or you can try to put it back and forth between the 2 egg shells, but it's kind of easiest just to use your hands there. Okay, so we're gonna reserve this egg white for a topping later before we bake. So I'll just set that aside for that. Okay, so we've got our 2 eggs and 1 egg yolk in here. All right, so we're gonna pour in a 1/4 cup of oil. I like to use olive oil. We're gonna pour that right on our eggs. And we're just gonna make a little slurry here. So just kind of gently whisk together the eggs. You can kind of smash them and whisk them in there. It's okay if a little flour comes in there. Just right in our little well we made. And by this time, so that's pretty good there. By this time, your yeast mixture is gonna be ready. So let's go see how that's looking. All right, so this looks beautiful. We want our yeast mixture to be foamy and poof up. If it does not do that at all, you want to start over with your yeast mixture. I keep my yeast in the fridge once it's opened. That seems to help it have a good lasting shelf life. All right, so we're gonna pour this right into the egg mixture. And now, okay, now you can use a wooden spoon or whatever spoon you've got, and we're just gonna kind of gently fold that in and mix it around. This is where you can do this with a KitchenAid, but making bread with your hands is just so fun. All right, so once it's pretty much mixed up in there to where it's hard to mix with a spoon, we're gonna turn it out onto, I just use a cutting board, and we'll knead it together. So I'm gonna use this one. I'm just gonna pour a little bit of flour over there and pour my dough onto Alright, and then we're going to just start mixing our dough together. And yeah, your hands might get a little messy. That's fine. I feel like I have to wash my hands a few times. Okay, now I'm going to use a flour to have here. that extra half cup that I didn't use at the beginning to have reserved for kneading the bread dough. With my cutting board sliding around, it reminds me of some video I watched and the lady was making something like that or something, and she went to use the rolling pin and the whole thing fell right off the counter. So that's why I started laughing. I was thinking, oh great, I'm gonna drop this. Alright, so you knead for almost 6 to 10 minutes. You don't have to watch me knead for long. If you're using the KitchenAid, you can do that for like medium or less time. Alright, so when I'm just about done kneading the dough, to give my bread a warm space to rise, I just turn my oven on to broil on low. And I start that so that it just gets a little bit of heat in there before I let it rise. Okay, so I have another bowl here that I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil in the bottom. And then I'm gonna take the bread that I've kneaded and just kind of rub it around on the bottom there. And let my bread sit in here. And I'll cover it with a clean towel. And we're gonna let it do its first rise. So the other thing I've found at higher altitude is to let your bread rise half the time. Check on it. It may not take as long to rise. So I find if it says to let it rise for an hour, I check it at a half hour. Yeah, so that's another thing with the higher altitude. Okay, so I like to put mine in the oven that is slightly warm. It's already slightly warm. And then I close it up, turn off that broil, and we're gonna let it rise for a half hour, and then I will teach you how to break the dough. All right, so it's been about a half hour. We're gonna take our dough out from its first rise. See how it looks. All right, it has risen. So I just punch it down. Take it out. And now, in that half hour when it was rising, I went ahead and got the pan out that I'm gonna bake the bread on, and I put some parchment paper on it. So, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna make a 6-stranded braid. You can do a 3-strand or a 4-strand, but I find the 6-strand is the most beautiful. You can also bring it into a circle, but I like to just have one loaf. So I'm going to take a sharp knife here and we're going to divide it into 6 parts. I just kind of try to eye it for my 6 parts. I don't always do the best here. You could do it very precise and weigh each one, but you don't have to. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those 6 parts and we're going to now roll them into strands. If you find that it is tough for it to roll, it doesn't want to go, just let it sit and start on the next one. And I can already tell I haven't done these perfectly even. It's okay. I might swap some dough over. But if one of them is tough to roll, you can let it sit for a few minutes and it will become easier. So if you like everything to be pretty precise, that is awesome. You can totally go for it and you can measure out each strand. You can make each one absolutely perfect. I don't quite do that though. So sometimes it can seem like bread just takes forever to make. And when you look at a recipe, you'll see, oh man, it says 3 hours, 4 hours. I can't take 4 hours to make bread, I'll just go buy bread. But a lot of that time is rising time, and you can get so much stuff done when your bread is rising. So for instance, when this was doing its rise time, I got everything cleaned up from before, got all the dishes cleaned up, got my ingredients put away, And that's the nice part about bread. You have a lot of downtime where you can get other things done. And especially if you're making this for the holidays, you can work on some of your side dishes, you can clean up, you can do all kinds of things. So don't let it worry you when you see a long cooking time on a bread recipe, because that's the full time. And yeah, you got a little extra time while it's rising. Okay, these are not absolutely perfect, but that's okay. All right, so we have our 6 strands here, and we're gonna just do this right on the baking sheet, and we're gonna let it do one more rise after we braid it. So here we go for our braiding. So what you're gonna do is you're going to put all the 6 strands together at one tip. You're gonna bring them all together and just kind of pinch them together so they're hooked together. All right, and now you're gonna take the outer piece and you're going to put it over 2, 1, 2. You're gonna put it under the middle one and lay it over the top of the next 2. Okay. Then you're gonna take the next outer strand, you're gonna put it over 2, under the 3rd in the middle, I'll move these over, and over the last 2. If you want to do this on a cutting board, not on the paper, that's totally fine. I know the bread can get, or moves it all around. Okay, then you do it again. The outer side, over 2, under the middle, and over the last 2. And the next outside piece, over 2, under the middle one, and over the last 2. You can kind of stretch it out. Okay, now over 2, under 1, over 2. Over 2, under 1, and over 2. Now I'm getting close to the end here where I'm not going to be able to keep putting them over, so I'm going to pinch them together like I did at the front end. Another reason I left these strands kind of like odd shaped and not totally perfect is because I don't want that to discourage you from making bread if you think it has to look all perfect. It doesn't. Okay, then you just kind of lay it nicely in the middle. You can pull it if you want, just make it look kind of nice. Okay, and we are now ready for our second rise. Okay, so we're going to put that towel back over it, and you're gonna let it rise for about another 20 minutes, half hour. Then we'll put it back in that warm space. It's cooler, but it's still a little warm from that first time we turned on the broil and turned it off. All right, so 30 minutes, now you have time to work on another side dish. And we'll see you back after the second rise. All right, we are done with the second rise. So I'm gonna take it out of our rising area in the oven. And I'm gonna get that oven turned on to 350 degrees. And while that's preheating, we're gonna take the egg white that we reserved, and I'm gonna just get a little whisk out and add just a little cold water. And we're gonna do an egg wash on top. So we'll just whisk that together. And, you know, so a little. Off. It's risen nicely. Alright, so we have that whisked up. And next we'll just take a brush and paint it on. This will give it that nice round look on top. We're going to just get it everywhere on the sides. Probably add some herbs on top if you want. I never have, but it's probably good. I like it with the honey cinnamon butter, so you usually leave it as is and we have it with a sweet fun about fresh baked bread. It makes your house smell good. It just seems like the right thing at a holiday to have your house smelling all good with fresh baked bread. And I like to make the bread so that it's going to be done pretty close to when dinner is served, so that you just take it out of the oven and fresh baked bread. Okay, so when we bake this, we'll bake it for 30 to 35 minutes. It does seem like ovens can vary, so just watch it. And you want it to be an internal temperature of at least 190 degrees. Okay, so I never use the whole egg wash. That's fine. Okay, so my oven is still preheating, but that's okay. You can put it in when it's still preheating. All right, we'll do this. It's almost to 350, and I'm gonna set my timer for 30 minutes. So I like to set it for the lower time and check it instead of the higher time and be bummed that it's overcooked. So 30 minutes, check it, and we'll see you back when we take it out of the oven. All right, so our timer has ended that 30 minutes. I think it's gonna be good. Let's take our bread out. Oh yeah, look how beautiful that is. Okay, and now let's check our temperature. So we want it to be at least 190. I like to just stick it inside one of the braids. Oh yeah, we're a little bit above 190, so we are good. So now we are going to just let that kind of cool a little bit. It is fun to eat it hot, but I mean right now it's gonna just scald your head. So I'm just gonna set it on here, and then you can mix up your honey, cinnamon, butter, if you like that. Basically for this, I don't have any measurements for you. I do it by taste. So take your butter. It's now nice and soft. We'll put it into a bowl. Okay, I'm gonna get a spoon and a fork. We're gonna spoon in some honey. That's a big spoonful. Okay, this is for my family, so I'm using my fingers, but if I was making this for you, I'd use, you know, like a spatula or something to get it off the spoon. All right. Then we'll pour some cinnamon in. And we're gonna just mix that all up. And this will be a yummy honey spread that just melts right on that bread. Okay, so for this honey butter, just taste it until you get to the right cinnamon honey flavor that you like, and it is just perfect on that warm slice of bread. All right, so there you have it. It does take up a good chunk of your day from start to finish. I mean, a few hours for start to finish for this bread, but like I said earlier, you have 2 rise times and you have your baking time, so you can get so much stuff done in there. And it is so worth it at the holiday time to have fresh baked bread. Your house will smell amazing. It smells so good in here right now. There's just something awesome about coming together around the table with some fresh baked bread. So I hope that you'll give this challah bread a try and just enjoy it with your family this Thanksgiving and maybe Christmas. Thanks for watching. Hey, there you have it. All cut open, the cinnamon butter melted on top. delicious.